Parliament this evening adopted the consensus report on the 6 billion shillings so-called oil cash presidential handshake. The report was tabled and debated in Parliament today, with the lawmakers unanimously agreeing with the recommendation that call for the refund of the money and that the Inspector General of Government should investigate the matter. The committee described the President's action to allow the payout as an error of judgment, recommended a refund of the money and an investigation of the beneficiaries found culpable in misusing taxpayers' money. On the spot tonight is Wilfred Nwagaba, Ndorwa East Member of Parliament and Shadow Attorney General, Godba Tumushabe, policy analyst and member of the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, and Ali Sekatawa, former Assistant Commissioner Legal, Uganda Revenue Authority. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. All of you, the national spotlight is on you. We have had the investigation of the 6 billion so-called presidential handshake, and the committee report is out. One of the things that stands out, the committee is saying that the president, what he did was, an error of judgment on his side. Let me begin with you, Godba, because I know you are a lawyer and an analyst, and from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, to put this into context. When a president makes an error of judgment, what does that mean?
I think presidents make errors, and I think it is really, for me, it's honorable. No matter who you are, if you make an error of judgment and you own it, because others don't want to actually even accept that they made a mistake. I think from the time this issue came up, we all argued and said that this was a wrong decision that was made, whether by the president, whether by the technical people within the ministries. And so for me, I think we must appreciate that the president owned up to this mistake and hope that he doesn't make the same errors again, because I've been discussing with a couple of colleagues about the report, and I was basically telling them that the way this whole issue of the handshake happened, that the fact that technical people employed by Ugandan taxpayers can go and say, we have done a good job, we need to congratulate ourselves, that the president can say, oh, this is fine, you can get this money, is the very definition of an oil cash, because essentially oil and oil money creates a certain level of excitement among in a country that has discovered oil resources, and because of the excitement, then the country begins, or the responsible people either begin to divert from the rules or to navigate around the rules or fail to be accountable. So that is basically, for me, the very definition of an oil cash. I should add, though, that I was particularly, gratified by the report that the committee prepared. First of all, the discipline of the committee, the fact that they were able to do their work, and the report didn't leak. I found it unprecedented that there was no minority report, because we've gotten used to these kinds of things. But for me, it also validated our argument, our point, that actually what you need is a small parliament of disciplined and organized people. They are the ones who transact business. In fact, the moment this report goes into the House, it has been adopted unanimously. The moment they start looking at how their resolutions are implemented is when you begin to see the mediocrity that you see a lot in the Parliament, most times because of the numbers.
Honorable Nwagaba, does this report in a way dent the image of the president? And if this was in other developed democracies, would we be seeing a parliament calling for some kind of impeachment?
Well, you would need to read the entire report to appreciate where the committee came to the conclusion that the president made an error of judgment. First of all, before I go into that area, I want to congratulate the entire House, and particularly our Speaker, the movers of the motion, who included the Honorable Tsime, myself, Honorable Anita,
congratulating
Honorable Elijah Nambeshi and Ogwang, because it is unprecedented, and if government is to follow the recommendations, it will go a long way to enforce financial discipline in the governance. But if you look at the report, the president came out openly to say, I did not know that one, the money which these people requested me to reward them in the form of 50% of the costs, that the costs actually had not been corrected, and that he was not advised on the legal implications of the decision he took, and that had he been properly advised, he would have handled it differently. So by the committee finding him to have made an error of judgment was based on a number of those facts. And I think it is excusable in those circumstances.
And the committee also noted actually...
Is it the choice of words just to give him a soft landing, or really it is an error of judgment?
No, I think the committee, I have read through the entire report, and I think the committee elaborated on the interaction with the president, and what the president actually reported. It's more or less like captured verbatim, and I think it's fair to call it a bona fide decision, but that lacks, that lacks judgment. So I actually don't think that the way the president presented himself, I would not say that's one issue where I would say, oh, we are going to impeach you.
Okay.
Because I think...
Let me bring in Ali Sekatawa, because he's a former head of litigation at URA. And if the monies doled out was illegal, was unconstitutional, was arbitrary, if people have a conscience, should they resign?
Thank you, Kamara. I actually find, I've read the report, and I find it, first of all, factually wrong. It has no legal basis. Even on the earlier point, you're saying the president had. It's not clear on what point he had. The report is very contradictory, because in one point they say the president has the powers under under Article 98 and 99 as the head of state. And then at another point they say he had. It's not clear where is the error of judgment. Okay? Two, from even Godba, what is saying, that the technical people went and asked the president after winning, and that's what he calls the curse. I think, again, that's a completely wrong appreciation of the factual matrix from this report. At no point, and I will ask anyone, including Parliament, including my colleagues, to show at any point whether there was any solicitation by any member of the technical team. They have chosen to ignore all the evidence before them. When we went to Parliament, we presented a letter that was written way back in January. The committee has, when they were analyzing the issue of solicitation, they have completely ignored it. When they go to the procedure on public service orders and so on, they have completely missed the point. They say there are no cash rewards, awards in public standing orders, and we gave them the rules themselves. Mr. Mitala, the head of public service, who has been in public service for over 30 years, appeared in the committee. They have completely ignored all his evidence. So I find this report completely not sound legally, and I think it will be, all steps have to be taken that it is expunged from the public record.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's good to hear, because there is somebody who believes they got it wrong. But let me try to put it in simple terms. Was this legal? Was this constitutional?
Yes, I will say it, and I've said it before, and I will say it again. The president has powers to reward a civil servant or any Ugandan at any point if he feels, as the head of state, he's the CEO, he's the fountain of honor. So that is legal. We can take it to any court. And he has done it before. I will say it again. He has rewarded, scientists who discovered oil. He has rewarded sportsmen. I am a sportsman myself. He rewarded us when Uganda Cranes qualified for the national team. He rewarded Kipsiro, Kiprotich. He has given scholarships to outstanding students. So I don't see anything illegal on that as a principle. So if we argue that principle first, the president as a fountain of honor, as a CEO, can say, oh, Kamara, you've done well, I'm going to reward you. If Parliament is saying that power does not exist, we disagree.
Honorable Nwagaba,
Yes,
over to you.
with all due respect to my learned friend, he has totally missed the point. One, the president, granted, is the fountain of honor. He is actually the chief custodian of the law. And because he's the chief custodian of the law, he has no right to operate outside the law.
Yeah.
That's the fact. So, and you cannot rely on Article 98 of the Constitution to say that the president can do anything. And why do we say that this particular handshake was clearly outside the law? One, the money which was paid to the 42 public servants did not come from the president's donation kitty. The president has over 70 billion for donation. And the good thing, one of the most important recommendations in this report is that government must come up with a law that will regulate this donation kitty of the president, so that money is donated by him in accordance with the law, not Wiriwashe. Two, the money came from URA, from a budget that had been appropriated by Parliament. And the budget that had been appropriated by Parliament for URA did not include any item to do with a handshake. As a matter of fact, the money that was paid was gotten from an item to do with the improvement of ICT. So for a full year, URA systems are even breaking because money was spent elsewhere, and for other items. And that's why Parliament, in its wisdom, refused to honor their request for supplementary, which supplementary had been disguised as teachers' salaries. I don't know since when it really became. So when you look at the provisions of the Public Finance Management Act, they were totally flouted by the Commissioner General, URA, the Secretary to the Treasury, the Minister, and the beneficiaries, most of whom, some of whom, were not even members of staff of URA, but were paid from the URA kitty. So this particular transaction, I would want my colleague to actually look at the report itself thoroughly and look at the minutes and the verbal, the proper recordings of all the testimonies. The review by the Cartoon Committee was
at one point, I'll be asking Mr. Sekatawa whether it was also part of his wise counsel to say this money should be doled out to the people for the job well done. But moving ahead, because it appears Ali Sekatawa and other people who have a similar school of thought are holding their ground on that side. But yet the Parliament is saying the Inspector General of Government should be able to investigate. Knowing how the IGG is, isn't that the end of the report, Godba?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Parliament has done its work. I think given the current political economy within which we operate, my view is that the committee has done its best. Even if one was to fault its report, I think they have done the inquiry, they have produced a report, they have presented it to Parliament, Parliament has adopted it. Now, anybody can go and start arguing whether the report is solid or not. The question as to whether the report becomes implemented is again a question of the political economy within which we operate. Because if you have the report of Parliament adopted unanimously, and the Parliament has no capacity to make sure that its recommendations are implemented, I have heard in some other cases Parliament arguing and say, oh, actually the executive argues and says the Parliament is advisory. But when it comes to the issues of budget, and this is the point where I really want to emphasize from where Sekatawa came in and and say the president is as a fountain of honor, has authority. The president only has authority to spend money that has been appropriated by Parliament. If that money has not been appropriated, he has no right at all, because the spending mandate in this country is vested in Parliament. That's why government has to present the budget to Parliament, and once it is approved, every expenditure must be based on that mandate.
Maybe I should need to add, on that investigation,
just a moment.
That investigation we are talking about, the report has basically two legs. The fact and the idea that the beneficiaries must refund the money is not questionable and is not subject to investigation. What the report has recommended and Parliament has approved is that those officers of government who flouted the law, and who are those? We are looking at those officers, for example, who waived off taxes worth $157 million.
Yeah.
That's an equivalent of over
by the way, that is even the bigger debate that is outside the 6 billion.
Yes,
Because I wish we would even get into that later.
Exactly.
Because that's a lot of money. We are busy talking about $1 million, yet we lost about $157 million.
The investigation we are talking about is investigate those who waived off taxes of almost 500 billion. Did they act in accordance with the law? If they did not,
okay.
Now, those who also, in their own wisdom, solicited and ensured the payment.
Let's have Mr. Sekatawa for his response.
I think this is where we are missing the point. And this mixture of issues without coherence is the one bringing all this confusion. One, no one has ever stated that the president can work outside the law. No. Article 98 still says the president will work within the constitution and the laws of Uganda. All we are saying is that the president has that prerogative. First point.
To appropriate money without Parliament's
he has
approval?
a prerogative. He has a prerogative to give a reward as a principle. Let me follow a logical flow. One, so if he has that prerogative, it is in accordance with the law. And no one has said
which law?
No. The laws of Uganda. Okay? Now, let me finish. Now, when you go to the Public Finance Management Act, which is being quoted, and I remember when Honorable Nwagabas, they were debating it, they reserved the power for the minister to spend up to 3% of the budget as a supplementary and come back to Parliament for approval, retrospective approval. In that law, they did not put in a tiebreaker rule. The tiebreaker rule would involve the fact that because the way the law is structured is that you do a budget, you go to Parliament. They appropriate that one. But a minister is given to spend up to 3% of that budget outside that appropriation, okay, and as a supplementary, and then comes back to Parliament for approval.
The
it means that
has conditions.
Let me finish. It means that at that point, if the minister has bought this jacket, Parliament already tied its hands. It did not put any clause to say that at that point they will stop the appropriation.
I disagree with
let me finish that point. So that's the first point I want to make. So, and I want to make it this way. The process that Parliament is faulting, under which the Commissioner General followed to pay this reward, is exactly paramaterial, the same process Parliament has followed to procure 200 million for their cars. They did not have money. They applied to the minister to use money, resources which is available to them. They were allowed to do it. They appropriated 100 million, which was deposited to their account last financial year, and they have received 100 million this year through the same process.
So if the same process is wrong, does that make it
No,
right?
it is not wrong. The point is that because it comes to the beneficiaries of this reward, and they want to appear to be, you know, very patriotic and nationalist, they are saying it is bad. But they know it, that in the law it's there, because last week they all received the benefits under that process. And I challenge the Honorable to come here with the approval letters, the mandate papers, all the papers that authorize the payment for that money. The money was not available to Parliament. It's the same process that the Commissioner General used. It is a process that is under the Public Finance Management Act. And their law, which they made, did not give them a tiebreaker rule. It says go and spend, come back and we'll approve to you up to 3%.
Can I clarify?
So for me, procedurally, I don't see anything wrong.
One, he is misstating the law and now trying to use blackmail on Parliament and whatever. The provisions of supplementary budget actually talk about 10% of the contingency fund. Yeah. That's one. Exactly. Two, for a supplementary budget to be invoked by the minister, it must have been unabsorbable in the actual budget. It should have been unavoidable, and three, it should have been unforeseeable. Absolutely. So those three conditions must exist.
And they don't portend.
And they do not.
Who decides those provisions?
Okay, just a moment.
It's not Parliament. It's the minister.
On that very
it's not Parliament that makes those conditions.
The minister brings the budget, Parliament appropriates.
First.
After it has appropriated, and the minister finds, or the department finds that in its budgeting, this particular item could not be foreseen, it cannot be absorbed, it is unavoidable. That's when you come for supplementary. And the minister's power to spend is not based on the entire budget, but the contingency fund.
Yeah,
so,
actually, the minister is supposed, for those kinds of emergencies, the minister is supposed to be spending from the contingency fund, not from the...
Gentlemen, hold on to your point there, because we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, gentlemen. We're back on air, and the discussion was not even off air. But it appears, Ali Sekatawa, you're holding your ground, and you still think this was not illegal.
Let me make a few points. The first point is, one, I've read the report.
You'll find yourself a lone ranger on this.
We are many. I've read the report. First of all, there are so many allegations that were made on the floor of Parliament that have been proved to be factually wrong in the first place, okay, by including Honorable Nwagawa. This money was from Petroleum Fund. Government had allocated 88 billion. NSSF was never paid. Taxes were never paid. All those, I am happy they are behind. And he doesn't want to mention them.
Because were not paid.
No, you misunderstood. Because we have a DTA between Uganda and UK. So the taxes that you're quoting here are the wrong one. I think Parliament should use expertise, okay? Now, all those have been cleared off. Now, the only debate that remains is, did we request or solicit? I was in the meeting. The person we were all meeting have said we did not request. You go in your own session and say, I think these people solicited. From where? You've ignored all the evidence on record, okay? And I think the beauty of it is that Parliament is not the last arm of government. There are other arms of government where this report will be challenged. So my view is that this is enough. Let me finish the last point.
Should that be understood to mean you're going to court?
Whatever means will be taken to expunge this report, because it is null and void. Let me give you the last point. The investigations that were being carried out on points 1, supplementary requests that were made on this matter, were in respect to requests that were made to Parliament in the 9th Parliament, where Honorable Nwagawa was a member of the legal committee. Honorable Segona, the chairman of this report himself, Mr. Katuntu, approved those supplementary requests. He was sitting, investigating himself. Yes, because look.
I think
the question. No. Listen to this. One of the terms of reference was to determine the appropriateness of supplementary requests that were made in respect to payment for fees in respect to this matter. All those requests were brought to the 9th Parliament.
Yes.
When they were brought, the Parliament sent them to a committee of Parliament, the legal committee, okay? That committee was chaired by Honorable Tashovia. Honorable Nwagawa here, we appeared before him, Honorable Segona and Katuntu, the chair. They approved everything. Technically, they can't turn around 3 years after and say they are sitting in their own case. If there was any investigation in respect to those supplementary requests and the procedures, it couldn't have been Honorable Katuntu. And that's why I'm saying this report is null and void
now I think-
from point one.
I think,
It can't
I,
stand
think,
anywhere.
I think I can see why at
think you have a
times the
problem
president gets problems.
Yeah.
If you have a person like Ari
Hey, if
trying
you
to
are
advise
advising
you,
you are
because
in
he's
trouble,
now talking about
Yeah.
supplementary budget in respect of money which was paid to the lawyers
Yeah.
in London
Yeah.
and the facilitation for the
For the-
team from here
Yes.
to London. We are now talking about the request or the solicitation of money worth 6 billion after the cases had ended. The supplementary budget is talking about, which we considered, were to help them pursue the case.
It was within those parameters of
Exactly.
No, but- but-
unavoidable.
but-
It is TOR number 4.
no,
it is here.
yeah.
This is here.
Fine,
You
because-
were investigating
No,
yourself.
Ali.
That's why I'm saying that
Ali,
legally,
Ali,
legally,
Ali, let's-
legally, this report can be done. It can.
No,
It
let's
can.
understand
Okay.
this. When a,
Good plan.
when a committee of parliament sits to consider a budget of a sector, it's not doing an investigation.
Exactly.
In fact, that committee is sitting as parliament. So you cannot say, this is a committee investigating. So you are considering that budget, you are reviewing it for purposes of approval. Now you can't say that was also an
No.
That was also
Okay,
an-
he wants
I
to
think
mean
I think
that
there's
if we pass
wait.
money in the budget
Let me
and the auditor general
make-
comes up with an audit report,
let me make this
then
point.
parliament should
Let me make this
because
point.
it
No.
passed
The-
the budget,
the beauty of
money
this-
was stolen,
One
so
at
we
a time,
should do it.
gentlemen.
The beauty of this is that all these people have very short memory. I have a long memory of this matter. Why? When you say this, no. Because
Can you
because
with-
because
can
when
you
you
with-
say
can
this
you
matter
withdraw
was
that?
no because
he's entitled to
yeah.
that's what
Are you
let me
challenging the intelligence of
No. Because they are choosing things. When you say that this was a normal committee report, this matter.
No, this is not
No,
what
let
you're
me
saying.
say something.
but that's what
Tamara.
we say.
No.
Okay,
Let me.
gentlemen.
When these budgets
No,
were
but
sent,
Patrick, we can't
to the-
allow people, somebody to misrepresent
when
facts.
these supplementary budgets were sent to Parliament, they were sent to this committee, not actually out of investigation. If you remember that time, that's the time that Honorable Karanga had brought a motion on the floor of Parliament. And the Speaker said, no, anything that relates to this should... Let me... you see, the problem is that that's why I'm saying that you want to put things in very, very short context.
No.
Everything was sent to that committee. When it was sent there, that committee actually even stopped payments in respect to this case, in respect to supplementary, and did an investigation in respect to this
Were they
payment.
investigating the presidential handshake
Ali, we
They
are
were-
at that moment?
No, TOR number 4. I'm showing you TOR
Because that
number
one
4.
came later.
This is TOR number 4, which they were investigating. I'm showing you why this report cannot stand in its
TOR
entirety.
number 4
Okay.
was to consider actually whether the Auditor General had already audited the
Yeah.
expenditure
That was authorized
by Parliament.
That's
Because
not what is in
that
the TOR.
That is the TOR.
Okay.
But in-
Okay.
That's what the committee did.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like the team here, or maybe Ali Sekatawa and people who think like him are going to dig in and maybe even go to court.
Yeah.
I think now we're
And
we're
I
headed
think-
for more legal
and
battles,
I-
aren't we?
And I think
Good
it's perfectly okay. Because you see, that's the beauty of if you have a system that is governed by the rule of law, if it was functioning, if the team is aggrieved, they should go to court and they should be given a hearing. For me as a taxpayer, because I don't work for government, I'm not an MP, but I'm a taxpayer. I want Parliament to be very, very firm when it comes to dealing with issues of impunity. And I think Ali has a point. If Parliament also has issues to do with impunity, it also needs to be dealt with. In that case, it has to be the executive or the judiciary that deals with it. In which case, as aggrieved citizens, we can go to court and say our Parliament is acting with impunity here. But I think the most important point here is that I think all of us as Ugandans acknowledge the work that the various government sectors have done in as far as the development of oil and petroleum and gas resources is concerned. I think that acknowledgement cannot be taken away. What we are saying is that we expect our public servants to operate in a certain way, to have a certain level of decorum, to maintain a certain level of dignity, and not to act with impunity. And this is both for the public servants, but also the president.
Yeah, but they are maintaining that they never solicited for this.
No, so that's why
and this was
that's what I'm saying. As right now, if the team can go to court and challenge the report. If the court says yes, Parliament had no right to go there, the Parliament has to comply. But if the court says no, actually there are issues to be dealt with, me as a taxpayer, I expect both Parliament and the executive to take appropriate action. So I don't think that we should really, flex muscles around this. I think that there were issues.
Honorable Nwagaba,
they come on the table and they have been dealt with. To
Honorable Nwagaba, on the issue of refunding this money, there are some among those 42 public officials who got money. There are those who really are at the lower end of pay. Yeah. But really, to tell them bring back 50 or 40 million shillings, is it fair? Especially, probably they were not even at the top of those allegedly who solicited for the presidential handshake.
Actually, as a matter of fact, if you look at the list of 42 plus, those who were in the actual no, the original team which went and met the president, everything is recorded in the committee. That included my friend Sekatawa here, are the ones who knew how the whole deal was cut. But you see, what we are trying to do as Parliament is to enforce financial discipline in the entire public sector. So whether they were innocently involved or not, our position is this money must be refunded because it was illegally paid, morally wrong, and everything went against the norms of the entire public sector and the rules of this country. So whether they were innocent at the lower end, they were tea girls and whatever, let them refund the money. Where they get it from is none of our business. They are lucky we've not recommended the payment of interest, but the principle is they refund. Then for presidential donations, the committee says, and the president agrees, government will come up with a law that will regulate who is rewarded with cash and under what particular conditions.
Among those people got back, there was a tea girl, there was a cleaner, there was a stenographer, there were people who did not even know much what was going on and just woke up one day on the accounts and they had money. And you tell them, bring back that money. Is that being fair?
The truth, publicly, that I am very, very sympathetic to these lower cadre public servants who have no business to make with the decision. I'm really very sympathetic to them. But you see, you can't benefit from an illegality. It's just not possible. An illegality is an illegality.
Yeah, but you see, this is where, for me, fundamentally, I have a problem. Who decides illegality? Who decides?
It's the law.
Yes. So can Parliament see it? You know, they have. Listen to me. They took over the powers of the Auditor General. This money was paid, and in 2 months they took over the powers. They took over the powers of court. They are deciding. They have taken over the powers of the executive. Because this was an executive reward. It's not Parliament that gave the money. They cannot take it away. Okay? It is the executive that sat. Government came and made a statement on the floor of the House that this was a government position. Okay? And now Parliament has taken it upon itself to say, and wait a minute, they have said in their report there was nothing extraordinary that was done. But they have forgotten that themselves, the Speaker himself had written to the team immediately after this case. Even he repeated it when they brought this motion. But when you look in this report, they have forgotten everything and they have overturned themselves and said no, that they didn't do anything extraordinary.
I just wanted to make a quick intervention. I think that Ali has a profound misunderstanding of what Parliament in this country is. The Parliament of Uganda is the people's representative organ. It exercises representation functions, legislative functions, and oversight functions. The Auditor General that you are talking about is accountable to the Parliament. So Parliament has every right to inquire and actually question and even summon the Auditor General to come and explain to it. Because me as a taxpayer, as a citizen, the organ I go to when I am aggrieved is not the Auditor General. Me, I will go to the Parliament. That's why I have an MP. And so if Parliament was not going to ask what the Auditor General is doing or how he's doing his job, what's happening in the judiciary, what's happening in the executive, then I don't know what kind of government you're talking about.
Just a moment.
Godeba has laid the function of Parliament very well. Actually, one of the cardinal functions of Parliament relates with accountability. As
the oversight function.
The oversight function. It acts as a check and balance on the other arms of government. And that oversight function largely relates with the use of public funds, which are collected in the form of taxes.
Fundamental.
It's very fundamental.
Yeah, that's fundamental.
And that's why the Auditor General, who audits all government departments, makes a report not to the executive, but Parliament.
Absolutely. And
when Parliament looks through the reports and says, refund this money, actually Parliament, under Article 9 of the Constitution, has quasi-judicial powers. It has powers of the High Court, especially the committees of Parliament. So when Alice talks about we have usurpatory powers, it's actually, he's trying to be mean with his knowledge of the law to appease the public that is listening to us. But the fact is...
By the way, Wilfred, the reason the Auditor General brings the report to Parliament is for him to tell Parliament and say, no, there were abuses here, so you need to take action.
Thank you. My point, which I was making, is exactly that. The Auditor General is supposed to be independent in what he's doing under the Constitution, because he is a creature of the Constitution, just like Parliament, and he's supposed to report to Parliament. And bring the report. Now, no. What happened in this matter is that payments are made in July. Auditor General's reports are after. At the end of the year.
In this particular matter, he did the report.
Let me finish. Payments are made in July. Immediately, Parliament jumps on it, calls the Auditor General, says we want a report in 3 weeks, and so on.
So he works under duress.
And I don't know. And that's why I'm saying that this report cannot
you are now speaking for the Auditor General that he to do a professional job.
Which Parliament? I've never seen it. Which Parliament calls a judge to appear, and Mr. Nwagaba, you are.
But is
you're a senior member.
Which judge was called?
The chairman of the Tax Appeals Tribunal.
Was he called as a judge?
Yes, he was a judge in this matter.
Tribunal.
That's what I'm saying.
Tribunal is a tribunal.
No, it's a
tribunal is an administrative entity.
Yes. Which Parliament called the judge to appear before him?
No,
this was the chairman of the.
But
you are a lead.
If he is called as a member of the tribunal, yes, but
as a chairman on a matter that appeared before him,
Parliament,
an investor sues the government of Uganda in a tax appeals tribunal, and Parliament calls the chairman of that tribunal to appear before him.
Actually, as in our oversight function, we at times interact with the Chief Justice.
On a matter before the Chief Justice?
No. And not in a matter before the Chief Justice. On general policy.
This report...
One at a time.
No, let me just make this point. Actually, you don't have to belabor this point. You see, tribunals are created by Parliament. The tribunal is created under a statute of Parliament. It's Parliament which goes and says, under this law, there is going to be a tribunal. Under this law, there is a board of directors of this entity. Those entities must be accountable to Parliament in the exercise of their function.
On a matter that appeared before the tribunal, the chairman went and made a judgment that was tried here, taken in the High Court of London, taken in the, and it was found sound, and then you call the chairman of the tribunal, who was a judge in that matter before you, and you think this report can stand judicial.
But if he came to give that judgment before the committee,
no, that's not what he came to do.
No.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll be opening the line so that you two at home can be a part of this discussion. Tell us what you think about this presidential handshake. We'll be right back. Welcome back, gentlemen. Welcome back. We have Honorable Nwagaba from Mundora East. We have Mr. Godbert Mushabe from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, and we have Mr. Ali Sekatawa, who is a former head of litigation at Uganda Revenue Authority. But now you are in Petroleum Fund, right?
Yes.
Okay. how things are in a bit
Yeah,
entertaining.
These things are intertwined.
I like the passion, how you're defining a thing. But, gentlemen, allow me, if we could, maybe shift the gears and look into the other $157 million that they had to waiver, that we as a country lost. And I think the debate should have been on that money, Godba.
No,
not this $2 million.
No, incidentally, that is the
$1 million
incidentally,
instead of $157 million. Ugandans, are we serious?
No, it's all of the issues, but incidentally, the $157 million. It's my colleagues and myself and my colleagues in civil society who brought up this issue, because for me that's what I found most intriguing. That the first case, government Taro goes to court. The case is pursued in the Tax Appeals Tribunal. Taro loses. It appeals to the High Court. It loses. And Taro pays the tax that had been assessed. So there is a precedent.
Heritage.
Yeah, sorry, heritage. So there is a precedent. And the second case that we are dealing with, where the $157 million was waived, had exactly the same facts. Heritage goes to the Taro goes to the Tax Appeals Tribunal. They lose, and they appeal to the High Court. And then they also appeal at the same time. They appeal to the Investment Tribunal in Washington D.C. What I found quite intriguing was that when the day the judgment, the day the consent judgment was registered in the High Court, is exactly the same day the letter withdrawing the case in the tribunal in Washington D.C. was sent. And I'm like, given all these circumstances that we are dealing with, and the fact that the fact that we are dealing with multiple parties, both government and private, for me there is an initial question of like, was this a question of efficiency, or actually this was an organized transaction on how this thing happens? So that's why for us we are like, okay, there is the $6 billion fine, but who has the power to waive a tax? One, it has been assessed by URA. It has been confirmed by the Tax Appeals Tribunal. My view is that once a tax has been assessed by URA, it becomes payable, unless
so
you are able
you're saying in those two circumstances,
yes,
it was either highly efficient or fraud.
Absolutely.
Actually,
that's the whole point.
To add something to that, the committee has found, when they invited the person who signed the waiving of the tax, the then Minister of Energy, Energy Finance, Honorable Saida Bumba, she said she signed it without reading. She didn't know what she was signing.
$157 million.
Yeah, she signed it off without...
That's almost like $1 trillion Uganda shillings, and you're not reading.
And the president says she did so without consultation. So when we talk of the IGG investigating, those are the readers it should be going into. And to bring to your attention, because this particular motion was brought by some of us, what actually the revelation of the $6 billion handshake for us was an opportunity to inquire into the petroleum fund. Our interest was not on the $6 billion. Actual interest was what exactly is happening to the petroleum fund. And what is happening...
And Winfred, to your point, for me, even if Ali went to court and quashed this report, for me as a taxpayer, as a citizen, what this process has done is so significant in terms of bringing everybody up to date with the information, the flaws, the good things that have happened, and where we need to make adjustments. So I think the process itself has its value that cannot be taken away, even by questioning the report.
And Ali, what's your stand on the waiver?
I wanted to give clarification. First, it is not that, and even in the report, that Honorable Saida signed off $157 billion. No.
We signed the PSA.
What happened is that from the time we started exploration as a country, there were PSAs that were signed as early as 1997 for the first companies that came into the country. Those PSAs, because at that time the grabbing was inaccessible. No one thought there was oil and so on. The people at that time had a package, a fiscal package that was included in PSAs of that time. Now, that is the time I think the minister, because there were PSAs go for 4 years. So there was 1997, then 2001, then another one of 2004, and then we have another regime that came after. Now, this particular PSA which was in issue is for one of the ones that started in 1997, because it was renewed and renewed and renewed, and it was signed. And as the committee noted, in that old PSA, which was carried along, there was that exemptions. The new PSAs had already, because at that time the scientists had already seen prospects in our area, and they had removed certain benefits that were given to investors at that time. So these new PSAs were better. They are better. So the old one, which we have here, which was the subject of this, was the old one that was signed by Honorable, and that's the clarification I wanted to make.
I hope this is not a question of short memory, because look, again, when you go back to the documents, the basis of the assessment of this transaction between for the 300, I think it's 313 million US dollars, where the 157 million is waived. The base of the assessment is the memorandum of understanding between the government of Uganda and Taro and the other companies. That's the basis. But I can tell you, I don't know whether Ali was still in URA then, because URA made an assessment, Taro made an objection. URA wrote a very smart response to the objection as to why Taro must pay that money. You read that objection, you see smart, patriotic lawyers.
So now you are acknowledging me. Thank you very much. You can give me a handshake.
That was his handwork.
That's why I asked. I don't know whether you were still in URA.
No, I am.
Because
I was.
Because the guys, if Ari or anybody was part of the URA team, or the Attorney General's team, which wrote the response to the Taro objection,
yes,
you would not be arguing the way you are arguing.
No. Yeah. I am not arguing. The first thing is that it's good that now you recognize that we put in a lot of faculty, and I was part of the team, okay, that did the entire process.
That's what we pay you
yes.
for.
Thank you very much. And I didn't disappoint you.
Yes.
Now,
I was not disappointed, to be honest.
The clarity I am making is that we then make that objection decision. We go to TAT. I argued that case. For your information, I argued the TAT case. I won that case.
Yes.
Okay. I won that case. There was an appeal. Okay. In the High Court. Okay. And then there is a matter that is filed in ICSID. Now the ICSID matters is not about whether a transaction is taxable or not. When you go to ICSID, it is International Court for investment dispute. Yes. The investor is saying, look, I went into the country. They gave me this package, okay? And I have lived in this country for 20 years. I've been exploring on the basis of this package, okay? And now all of a sudden, Ali is coming and saying, no, he's cutting off a piece of my package. That is the second dispute, that is the other side. And it has nothing to do, as you said, with the arguments we made them in the High Court and so on. So for me, the clarity I was trying to make is that it is not honorable to say that she signed
the
off.
157.
No,
then we have the same facts there.
Yes, the report indicates that Ali, she signed it at that time. Whether she read or not, I wasn't there. I just wanted to give that clarity.
Yes, I think, and the clarity I think is well taken.
I'm going to open the lines,
gentlemen,
so that we can have.
Even if this was not done in error, the Parliament must be able to revisit how a government official or a ministry or whatever makes those kinds of waivers on an assessment that has been already made by URA and has been confirmed by a tax appeals tribunal. Because you can't wake up one day and say, let's settle out of court. There must be something that that you're dealing with here, and I think it's important that Parliament reflects on how to tie those pieces. Because again, just one last point to say that for me, no matter the pull and push factors about this case, what this whole issue helps us to do is to reflect on the governance of the oil sector. And I think that I would want to again to congratulate the committee for raising the whole question of clause 8, section 8 of the Petroleum Act, the upstream legislation, because you know that's where there was a huge debate about what are the powers of the minister. And the executive really fought very hard and said we need this. And we said you can't have all these powers, regulatory, licensing, approvals, you all vest them in the minister. It's just the wrong way of managing
who could
a
be
sector.
an A level, it's equivalent.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's open the line so that we hear what Ugandans, those watching us, might have to say. You could be a beneficiary of this presidential handshake. And you see how Ali is just digging in.
Ali is speaking on behalf of the beneficiaries. So.
And maybe you have, you could bring some more ammunition, reinforcement if you could. So this is the moment for you to tell us what you think. I'm taking the very first call online. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Good evening, sir. You're on air. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, it's Peter from Bushenyi.
Peter in Bushenyi, tell us what you have to say tonight, and please, if you can speak up, sir.
Yes, I want to remind the Honorable Member of Parliament there.
Yes. Please.
Yes, there's a legal principle, or what you could call a maxim, which states that he who comes into equity must come with clean hands. I'm wondering, how Mr. Nwagaba starts accusing those URA people for appropriating 6 billion when them themselves have sat and appropriated more than 400 million for their cars. Where does he get the moral authority?
To question that.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take another call and ask the producer to turn up the volume in the studio so that my guests can be able to hear the callers properly. Let me take another call online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name? Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Robert. I'm calling from Kampala.
Robert, you're on air, sir.
Yes. I want to ask Ali a question.
Yes.
Ali, would he reason the way he's reasoning if actually he had not taken the money?
Would he speak the way he's
Would
speaking?
he reason the way he's reasoning on air there if he had not taken the money, if he was not a beneficiary?
He's reasoning like a beneficiary. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're implying?
Let him put himself in the other shoes that he was not a beneficiary. He was a common man, a taxpayer like me.
Robert, thank you very much. Your question was very precise, and he will respond to that.
Please, just 1 minute. Secondly, hello?
Yes, sir.
If really the action taken was good, that it was good for them to really receive whatever they receive, then why did they receive the public that actually the 60 billion was the areas for non-preaching staff of URA? Can you tell us where the non-preaching staff of URA are? Over to you, Mr. Ali, please.
Thank you very much. Let me take 2 or 3 more calls, and then we can turn to studio and see what these gentlemen have to say about your questions or your comments. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ellis. I'm calling from Kampala.
Okay, sir.
Briefly, I have some sympathy with the position that Ali has taken. And this is the basis of my sympathy. The government won a case. It is almost like Uganda Cranes winning a match. Sometimes it is in order to reward victory.
Absolutely.
And I think we shouldn't condemn people who go abroad fight cases for the country, and come back with the cup. And you tell him, what did you do? You were a midfielder after all. It was your job to stop the goals from entering. At one point, there is nothing wrong with saying a small thank you to someone who's put up a big effort. I think that was the principle of the idea. I have sympathy for it. I even have sympathy for Honorable Nwagaba's car. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you have sympathy for them, but they're saying, look, the president can do that, but maybe it is from the wrong kitty. It's from the wrong fund. Yeah. That please, you have a bag where you could have gotten that money. This is not that one.
We give you a bag.
but let me pick some two. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is James. I'm calling from Abu Dhabi.
John in Abu Dhabi.
Yes, I'm watching it live.
Okay, go right ahead, sir, John.
James. Hello?
John in Abu Dhabi, you are on air. Go right ahead, sir. James, okay.
Yeah. Now, regarding the handshake that Ali is saying it was right for the president to give the handful of people. Now, regarding that, it is very wrong for Ali to argue over what is really not right. Because the two honorables are really explaining and really they're giving up or showing the point as to why the money that was given to these few people is wrong. But Ali is defending it and is contradicting the whole story with other things. Let him not base the emphasis on the report. Let him see the reality in the money. Was it budgeted for? Or was it put in the budget that after winning the case, you guys are supposed to receive this amount of money? Let him not bet the handshake on something else, because the money was not budgeted for. That is my view. They not confuse the handshake with something else.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, James, calling in from Abu Dhabi. Okay, let me take one more call, and then we can maybe close the call there. Hello? We have a call online. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, this is Mark calling from Kampala.
Mark, you're on air, sir.
Okay. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to make one or two comments. One is
Mark, you are listening to your own echo. Just continue speaking one coherent statement that you want to make, and you close it.
There are challenges that need to be dealt with. One being that the due process in this committee hearing needs to be worked on. If evidence and credibility of these committees are to meet the scrutiny of the court. Otherwise, you'll have cases like what Ali is saying.
Okay, thank you.
I think. Let me not go further, but I think that is an important point that I wanted to put across.
Thank you very much, Mark. All right, thank you very much, all of you who have made in your contributions. And I know that my producer is telling me so many people are trying to be a part of this discussion. Unfortunately, we can't take so many calls, but at least we have sampled a few views from some of you. Ali, go for them.
Thank you. I think the last caller, I agree with you entirely. The due process, because this committee is supposed to be fair and independent and in accordance with the Constitution, because it should hear us fairly.
And conform to the rules of
and conform to the rules of nature. Thank you very much, my teacher. you also, it was like a mob justice. You couldn't even answer questions. The members, the petitioners were there sending cheats and so on. I think this report, the investigators, 2 members, Honorable Karanga, Namayanja, who appeared in London on this case, who are supposed to be our witnesses, were the other side. It's all, so it can't stand the due process of the law, and I think it will have to be expunged. The gentleman who asked, would I argue like this if I was not a beneficiary? My answer is yes, sir. I started this case in 2010. These cases in 2010. I've argued it. It's good enough that even Godba has seen some of the products that we made in respect to our objection decisions, the arguments we made from day one up to 2015. We just received this reward the other day after bringing to this country $434 million US.
Not all of that. Not all
we
that.
brought all of it. I'm telling you. I submitted the receipt.
About the one that was
No, Kamara, this is where the whole misinformation is. We brought $434 million US. It is at Karuma doing your dam. We brought another $250 million US, and the receipts are here. That's close to $600 million in over 7 courts after 6 years. We were given $1 million US because we received 3.5 billion, which is less than $1 million US as a reward. After 6 years, from the day one we started work, we are all doing our job. It is after, as the gentleman said, after qualifying, after the victory, that the head of state said, here is something for you. After bringing over 1.7 trillion Uganda shillings, after all those things. So my arguments here, I am passionate, I am a patriot, I studied on government funds, I have argued these cases like any other Ugandan, and I am happy that we brought victory. And lastly, I wanted to make this point. I have been in Tanzania, because in 2012, Tanzania, there was a disposal of a uranium deposit at $1.2 billion US. Okay? They lost the case. My lowest point is that I went there because I was invited to tell them how we won a case in international courts and so on about a similar transaction for Uganda, and the Minister of Finance, Minister of Energy, and the TRA people were under investigation by a Public Accounts Committee of Tanzania for failing to collect that money. Up to now, they have not collected it. So our lowest point is that after doing all this, we are being bombarded by all manner of accusations out of a gesture from a head of state, which we did not
from a wrong kitty.
The kitty doesn't matter, because if you are good-hearted people, if you had good intentions, the head of state said, okay, if the account was different, you can go to this account. You have refused to go there. Okay? That means your intentions are not in good faith.
Okay. Honorable Nwagawa,
yes.
And in a way also making your concluding remark on this.
Thank you. Well, definitely there are no members of parliament with any wrong intentions or feelings. What we want is proper accountability and proper use of the public purse. We do thank URA, we thanked them when they won the cases. But our principle is the money, a manner in which money was solicited for, and in which a manner in which it was paid was contrary to the law, and we cannot sit by and watch as the taxpayers' money is wasted. By the way, for your information, the entire district of Amadat, Harris, all the salaries and the development gets a budget of only 5 billion.
Yeah.
So
I know Karanga gets 6 billion.
So,
We brought 1.7 trillion.
That's enough. Two, I do believe the committee that was chaired by Abdu Katuntu observed the rules of natural justice. And the good thing is all the recordings of the witnesses' testimonies and everything is on record for Sekatawa and his likes, if they so wish, obtain them. If they find they are aggrieved, the courts are there for that purpose. But this time I hope when you go to court, you will serve parliamentary commission, that you do not sue the Attorney General.
We shall actually sue the Parliamentary Service Commission.
And deal with with the Attorney General as happened in the Severino case and the Ikorud and get judgment. Serve the Parliamentary Commission. But I believe Katuntu's committee observed the proper rules of natural justice. There is one quote from Bushenyi Peter. He said, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. This is not a court. And that principle applies only in the matters of court. But when you talk about the remuneration and the entitlements of members of parliament, that's a different matter, governed under different law, and has nothing to do with the issue we are talking about. But other than that, I still maintain that the committee did the thorough job and did it well. And the beauty is, actually, one of the things we wanted was to know exactly how the petroleum fund is managed. And we realized when we passed the law, the Public Finance Management Act, the fund was supposed to have had over 1 trillion Uganda shillings. But we passed it in March. In June, the technocrats decided to transfer the money then to the consolidated fund. To the consolidated fund, instead of putting it on the petroleum fund. So they opened the petroleum fund after they had already taken the biggest chunk of the money to the consolidated fund. But now that the report has been adopted, we believe, as it was one of the considerations, that Parliament will be getting quarterly reports of the petroleum fund. We want to make a keen eye on how the money on that fund is deposited and withdrawn, because we made the law to strictly ring-fence it, and we hope the technocrats and the government will not misuse it as they have been trying to do.
Good, but you're parting short.
Yeah, I can make just 3 quick points for me. One, I want to associate myself with the colleagues who questioned Woodford, the moral authority of Parliament, that Parliament has increasingly done things that in the eyes of the public, you are actually diminishing your legitimacy and your authority to question the actions of the executive. In fact, when you look at some of the transactions like the cars, the waiver of taxes, some of us look at you as a conspiracy between the legislature and the executive, the way these things are done. So I think on that point, I really would want to associate myself with the colleagues who raised that point. The second point is that for me, this issue, the job that was done by the government officials is definitely well appreciated. But when you have a situation where you have petroleum resources, you don't want a system where people can choose and pick and choose. They pick and choose whom to reward and whom not to reward, whom to give a contract and whom not to give a contract. So I think that the principle of rewarding is perfectly okay, but it has to follow certain rules. In the event that there were no rules, you don't want to have a president, whether that president is considered magnanimous or not, to give him or her a free, a blank checkbook where he can write checks to anybody because he thinks he is pleased with how officials have transacted business. And finally, I think that this report, even if we raise questions of natural justice and others, like Ali is saying, this report gives us an opportunity as a country to plug the loopholes in terms of the accountability systems, in terms of the transparency. I think the point that Winfred raised on the revenues from petroleum and the transition from the holding account to the petroleum fund. So there is an opportunity for us to be able to plug the loopholes, because to be honest, our government doesn't have the credibility and the discipline to manage all this money that would be generated from the oil. So this is the opportunity for us to be able to plug those loopholes and make sure that once the actual revenues come, because we haven't received any money from petroleum, so once the actual revenues come, there are clear systems of how these resources are governed and clear accountability systems among the different institutions that are mandated to manage petroleum resources and
Ali,
revenues.
thank you. Ali, your parting shot.
Thank you. I also fully agree. Parliament has no moral authority to question this refund on account of the fact that it is the same process they have used to procure their vehicles, on account of the fact that the other day they illegally, and I will say it, illegally inserted a waiver on taxation of their benefits, well knowing that it is not allowed. It was, and you will know. And lastly,
I don't know, suppose we make laws.
yes, but they moved the motion themselves on the floor. The Constitution says Parliament cannot move its own motion to do that. There's that article. And they did that. They moved their motion, gave themselves an exemption. I don't think they have a moral authority to question this. I think we deserve this reward, and we shall defend it. We did not take it illegally. We were given this money, and I think the committee ignored so much evidence around to prove that we actually did not solicit this money. We did our job, and we were rewarded for it. And lastly, I think I thank everyone who has called and shown sympathy to us and solidarity to us, and we can assure you we shall continue executing our public functions without fear or favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. These are men of valor, men of substance, passionate Ugandans who love their country, I suppose. And I think one thing that we learn from this is that the antennas of Ugandans are up, looking around whoever touches public resources. Probably now you'll have to take it very carefully because Ugandans are watching. I think when people discuss the way they are, it's not that because they hate each other, but it's because they love Uganda a bit more. Thank you very much. Good night, and God bless Uganda.